Do you need to have a difficult conversation with someone in your life? Have you been avoiding it for a very long time because you don't know where to start or how to go about it? The good news is you are not alone. Having a difficult conversation is one of the most common challenges I hear from my clients. If a difficult conversation has been on your mind and you have been trying to avoid it, but it keeps haunting you, then this video is for you. Hi, my name is Dima Salame, and I am a leadership and executive coach, and I've helped many professionals and leaders just like you ease the pressures and challenges of
In
leadership.
this video, I'm going to share with you practical tips and steps that you can follow to help you initiate and have a productive, difficult conversation. I am particularly excited about the self empowerment that comes from finding the courage to have the conversation. It will definitely help you become a better version of yourself. Now, having a difficult conversation is not the only challenge facing leaders these days. If you want more strategies to help you reduce your stress level, I've put together a free stress relief guide where I walk you through a simple 4 step roadmap to experience stress relief. Feel free to click on the link below to go download the guide right now. Let me start by telling you a personal story because I think you will relate. I thought about having a difficult conversation with someone I used to work for months. And to be honest with you, I tried talking myself out of it many, many times, but it was taking a lot of time in my head. So I knew I had to do it. Although there's no perfect time of when to have the difficult conversation, there are definitely some good indicators of when it's time to have it. If it's taking a lot of time in your head, you are obsessing over it, or you are becoming resentful about it, then it's definitely time to have it. Or in other situations, if you are constantly gossiping or complaining to others about it, then it's also a very good indicator that it's time to have the conversation. So, to go back to my example, after months of avoiding it and delaying it, I finally booked the meeting to have with that person. And I decided to have the conversation in person. I strongly recommend that you have this conversation in person or at least on video. There's something about the body language, the facial expressions that will help you better connect to that person and feel the vibe if you can see their face and their body language. And if you are in the same room, try to think about the setting of the new room. If there's a big table, for example, between you and the other person, it's definitely not very helpful into having a really productive conversation. So the day of the meeting, I was really secretly hoping that they would cancel or even that I would get sick so that I don't have to talk to them. And I remember as I was walking to take that elevator that day, I started getting very nervous. I had to take a few deep breaths to calm myself. And then finally, I got to their office and I wasted time talking about, the weather, the vacation, the kids, just to avoid getting into the subject. And then finally, I heard that voice in my head say, okay, what are you waiting for? Just do it. Just go ahead and have the conversation. So I did. And I obviously spare you all the details of that conversation. But in hindsight, after having this conversation, I asked myself, why did I avoid having this conversation for so long? I think one of the reasons why I did that is I didn't want to be emotional in front of them. And we all do that. We don't want to show emotions in front of others. We don't want to be perceived as weak. So we avoid the conversation altogether. I also wanted to keep the peace. I did not want to take the risk to upset anybody. In this case, it felt like I almost valued peace over actually valuing what would happen if I did not have this conversation. I underestimated the value of not having the conversation, and I overestimated the value of just keeping the peace and making sure nobody gets upset.
And I also asked myself at one point, what difference would it make if I talk to them? We always tell ourselves they're never going to change. I don't know why I would put myself through this very difficult conversation if they're not going to change. And you might have many other reasons why you don't want to have this conversation. It could be, it is not my responsibility, let somebody else deal with it. Or it could be, I don't want to jeopardize my career. Or it could be as if they should know what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking. But it's very risky to assume that our point is obvious. How we are showing up to others, how our behaviors are perceived from the outside is not as obvious as we think it is. So let's dive in. Let's go through the 6 steps that you can follow to help you navigate these difficult conversations. Step number 1: know your why. Ask yourself, what am I hoping to get out of it? To go back to my example, I know I did not want to prove them wrong or prove myself right. I simply wanted to speak the truth. I simply wanted to have the opportunity to say the version of my story. For you, it could be, I need to stick up to myself at work, or I want harmony in the workplace. So, at the beginning of the conversation, I clearly communicated that the reason why I wanted to have this conversation, although a lot of time has passed, is because it is very important to me that I say my truth. That's it, as simple as that. Knowing my why helped me come to the conversation prepared. I had an outline of the conversation in my head because I knew exactly why I wanted to have it. In the context of giving feedback to an employee, try to link your why to how addressing the issues could lead to growth and opportunity. For example, an employee who has a difficulty with their writing skills and you know they are interested in becoming an executive, you could say something like, what I'm asking to work on ties directly with your career aspiration. Step number 2: pick a specific example. Pick one concrete and factual example to anchor your conversation. Don't go to the conversation and start talking about every conversation, every action, inaction, every instance where certain things were said or done that you did not agree with. Same thing with our partner or a family member. When was the last time you had an argument with a family member or with your partner and you started bringing up the past and the conversation went well after this? Never, right? So you don't need to go to the past and you don't need to bring up every possible situation where things went wrong. Then the person will shut down and become super sensitive and super defensive, and then you lose your chance at having a good, productive conversation. We think if we had many examples, then we have enough proof to say where we were right and where they were wrong, for example. However, usually one example is more than enough to get your point across.
Step number 3: state how it made you feel. Express how their behavior or their words made you feel. I know that in step 2 I said be factual, and here I am saying to state how you felt. It is important to do both. When you are presenting the facts, separate your emotions. Once the facts have been stated, share with them your feelings. Although other people are not responsible for your feelings, it's important to express them. I'll tell you why. Don't assume people know the emotional impact they could have on others. Although people don't usually wake up and say, today I am going to intentionally say something to hurt this person, but they do. And that is why it is important we verbalize to them the impact that that could have on us. In addition, by expressing your feelings, you are also setting a boundary of what is acceptable and not acceptable to you. We'll talk more about boundary in step number 5.
Step number 4: listen to what they have to say. People have different perspectives and experiences. Really listening allows you to understand their point of view and to reduce misunderstandings. In addition, it prevents the conversation from escalating. We usually have the tendency to prepare what to say when the others are speaking so that we win the argument, or we lecture them as fast as we can because we want to get it over with. Try to truly listen and don't be afraid to ask questions. You can say things, can you help me understand? Here's what I'm seeing. This is what the story that I'm telling myself. And don't hesitate if you feel that you got to a point in the conversation where you need time to process everything to say. I need time to think about it. Can we circle back tomorrow? Step number five, validate. Validate whatever you hear. Although you might not agree with their version of the story, it is still their lived experience. This will prevent from turning the conversation into an argument. Remember, your why is not about winning. In my example, the other person started sharing with me the challenges they are facing and how hard it has been on them. I truly made the effort to listen and to show empathy. It turned out they were struggling and hurting as well. It wasn't easy to exercise empathy, if I'm being totally honest with you, but it was definitely worth it. Try saying something like, I know, I can understand how hard it must have been. This must have been really tough for you. When you listen and validate, you are stepping away from arguing and debating. Step number six is to end the conversation by restating your why again and requesting a boundary and or a new behavior. At the end of the conversation, restate why you wanted to have the conversation in the first place and request any boundary or behavior that you would appreciate from the person moving forward. This is especially important to avoid similar misunderstandings in the future. And before I end, I wanted to remind you that sometimes it is totally okay not to have the conversation at all if it means protecting your mental health. You are the judge, make the right decision for you. Hopefully, you found the video helpful. See you in the next one.